Welcome back to the next episode of Surviving Life's Pickles. We're your hosts, Scott and Hillary. Today's episode 2 in our divorce miniseries, which we are going to talk about divorce with kids involved and how to navigate the challenges of
co-parenting,
boundary setting,
mutual respect,
and putting the kids first.
with an amazing divorced couple who has navigated this for over the past 10 years.
Thank you, Jeff and Shay Stone. Welcome, and thank you for joining the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having us. It's really a pleasure.
I'm just going to hit you guys up. And you know what, Jeff, I'm going to start with you because you're to the left of the dealer on the screen. And I just want to go around the table here and, what are we grateful for today?
I'm grateful for surprises that come out of left field. They keep life interesting. They keep it so you don't know what's coming. In this podcast, this invitation, even though I knew about it for the last number of weeks, is still surprising. Never done anything like this before. I'm grateful for new opportunities with that and the vulnerability that's going to come. So yeah, the surprises that life gives and in a good way like this are kind of fun. Grateful for those.
Today I think I am most grateful for growth. I think throughout life we change so much and those around us have to be willing to grow with us. But even within ourselves, we have to be able to change and become something different to those that have other needs.
Okay, love, your turn.
My turn? All right. Well, today I'm just really grateful for connection. I'm super grateful of what an honor it is to be counted on, what a privilege it is to be thought of. And I just really believe that the most meaningful things in life are meant to be shared, stories, memories, love. And it's all about love here today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll kind of finish it out here. And today I am really extremely grateful for alternative medicine. I have been suffering from a massive kidney infection all week, and I wouldn't have made it through this week without some really good CBD menthol rub that Hillary's been putting on me multiple times a day to calm the inflammation down, sitting in a hot tub, experiencing a sauna, and using these different methods of just popping a pill has really helped me. And I'm extremely grateful for these other ways of curing our bodies as we are exploring this as a whole social here in the U.S. I know Europe does it a lot more than we do. And so I'm grateful for those things. As we jump into this podcast here, like I said, this is part 2 of our divorce one. And really, guys, I don't want to dive into any like the nitty gritty, the nasty details of any of that stuff with your divorce, but I kind of want to get a little background kind of as things started. And you know what, we'll just throw it off. Whoever just kind of wants to start off here. As the divorce process started for you guys, you've decided that that was the right direction for you and your family to go. What were the things that you did, or how did you guys start talking about it during the divorce process of the kids? How are you going to handle the kids, the visitations, the taking care of them, all the things that come along with this?
I think for me, I think everyone's situation is very unique and different depending on how many children they have, along with how old that they are. For us, when we chose to get divorced, we looked at it and we were like, do we want to get divorced when the kids are young, or are we going to be that couple that stays together for the kids and try and makes it work? And our children were very, very young. Because of that, I think it was well known for both of us that I needed to be with the kids more than just a 50-50 split, because my child was a year and a half and 6 months old, right, as we started it. Because of that, I knew that I would take a major majority of it. And I think that that was really important for us to agree upon at the very beginning. I think the other aspect is that we saw that no matter what, we were going to be a family. We just might need to be in 2 homes, right? So for us to change our dynamic, it wasn't about breaking up our family. It was ending the marriage and continuing the family into a separate, into 2 spaces.
Yeah, there was despite a lot of the things that we were disagreeing upon at the time, we agreed, I think for the most part, that the kids needed to be shielded from what mom and dad were talking about in terms of just how we were feeling about things. The kids always came first. And You know what Shay mentioned there about having very, very young kids that needed their mom, 100%. The kids getting as much support as possible was never really a debate between us at all, because we always agreed that was going to be 100%, no matter where we went.
Going off of what Jeff said, it was not long after the divorce was finalized that I realized that our custody battle, or our custody agreement, that my little boys needed their dad more. And so we actually went off of what the custody schedule was because of my job needs and because my boys were missing their father. And I feel like if I wanted to be mean and angry and bitter and hold my kids away, then that's not helping them. So putting them first was always the most important, whether that means our schedule changes week to week, to month, to year, depending on the kids' needs.
Oh, that's awesome. And how long has it been? I mean, you guys have been divorced for how many years now?
9 years, since almost 10
So
since we were
as we're
separated.
talking about that situation, that's kind of how your mindset was as you started this. Has that changed? Or, you said you guys have changed your custody a little bit because you both realized that the equal parenting has been a definite need for the boys. But has that changed in other ways and evolved since you guys set that up originally? I mean, Jeff, as far as you're seeing it and you're starting to spend more time with the boys, going into this, has that changed things for you as well?
It's always, yes, but it's always been kind of a rolling thing. Like, hey, this week is this, or next month is that. To my recollection, it all really started, our divorce was finalized, again, if I remember correctly, in like mid-October of whatever year that was. And it was your Halloween, quote unquote, my Halloween, the split holidays and things like that.
It was my son's first Halloween, and I couldn't bear to not be with him.
And yeah, kids were little. Dylan was first time like walking this trick-or-treating, and it was quote unquote my Halloween. And we were doing the kid handoff one day in someone's driveway or a parking lot at work. And Shay said, I don't know how we're going to do Halloween because it's yours, but I deserve to see my kids trick-or-treating. And I said, well, let's go trick-or-treating together. And, we can be parents for 2 hours and go trick-or-treating. Our kids are going to have energy to walk 2 blocks anyway. It's about it. And let's just go trick-or-treating with the kids. We can probably do that. And in my recollection of our history, that's how it all kind of started, was just these, at these very sensitive times, really close to the finalization of our marriage. There are these really small allowances that we gave each other of like, hey, let's do Halloween. Hey, let's do Thanksgiving. Hey, Jeff, crash on my couch for this first Christmas because it's quote unquote her mom's Christmas. But the boys deserve to see dad. So crash on my couch and help me wrap presents and we'll do Christmas that way.
Was that something difficult for you guys at first?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's also something I've learned is very difficult when you're dating other people. Not everyone's going to be okay with your ex-husband sleeping at your house on Christmas Eve. So there has to be a lot of trust that has to be built and conversations that have to be made. And that's why I say, there's not always a perfect divorce, because even in trying to build a perfect divorce, we're trying to build another family too. And so there's another dynamic that we didn't even think of when we created this. But I've also learned, and one major thing that Jeff and I have really tried to teach the children is that blood doesn't necessarily determine family. So Jeff can be my family and I can get remarried and have another family and we can just be one big giant family. I never wanted my children to have 2 Christmases. What an awful experience. Right? I never wanted my decision to not stay married to make my children's lives harder. Right? I needed, just because of my decisions, I need to still make their life as happy as it could be, whether it be in one home or 2.
Just because I've made some hard choices doesn't mean that they need to pay for those hard choices that I made.
I mean, you guys are just united on that front of the kids are the number one thing that you guys need to agree on. You might not agree on who the other person's dating. You might not agree on where the other person decides to live. But besides all those things, you guys have seemed united that because of the decisions you made, you're still not going to make that affect your kids growing up. You're going to be the parents they want to be.
Can I roll it back for a little bit? How long were you guys actually married for? And just let us know, like, how many kids you actually have together.
So we met in 07. We were married in 2009. So we were together in total 10 years. We were married for
How many
7.
kids did you have?
We actually have 3. One passed away when we first were together, and we have 2 surviving. And the other dynamic I think that matters is now our children, our boys, are 10 and 12. And I am seeing that my boys need their dad even more. They have changed from needing mom as much because moms are there for those little ones. Now, if they were little girls, it might be different. I don't have little girls. I have my boys. So one of the things I think women and moms really need to understand is how much those boys look to their fathers. And that having a Disneyland dad is not so bad. At least you have a dad that loves their kids and wants to take them out and play with them and do fun things. I never became offended when my ex decided to take my kids to Alaska or do things. Heavens be, how could I ever want to rob that from my children?
Let's also be honest, Shay's the only parent that's taken them to Disneyland so far.
I'm on board with you, Jeff. I'm the same way. I don't want to have to deal with that. Mom can take them. I get it.
Oh, I want to go. I just can't afford Star Wars Land tickets yet. So I'm dying to go. You guys haven't gone.
Was Shay making these statements of, how much he has seen the boys evolving and now needing their dad? How does that feel to you? I mean, have you kind of seen the same thing on your side?
I selfishly see it as I need my boys as much as possible. I definitely, there's going to be that parental mask and a little bit of selfishness of any time that I get to spend with them. But there's been, it throughout this entire time of separation and divorce, there's been times where Shay calls me up and says, "Hey, Jack needs you tonight," or "Dylan just really needs to talk to you about something," And whether it's a phone call or we, stop in because the schedule and distance allows it. There's been times where, yes, I've absolutely seen those times where the boys need it or Shay sees it before I and the boys see it sometimes. And she'll just notice it, kind of call it out. I absolutely think and believe that, every kid needs a good father figure, and I try really hard to do that. But boys need a good dad, and I try to play with my kids. I try to get down and teach my kids. I try to, leave them alone and let them learn what gravity feels like. I see it less of a conscious, checklist of time that boys need X amount of time with their mother and father, and just kind of this rolling observation, again, where this openness and trust with each other, where we're like, "Hey, I think the boys need their mom right now. Let's go see mom," or "Hey, mom, come down for a movie," stuff like that, where I think we just try to keep it very, very fluid, if that makes sense. I don't know, Shay, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that kind of goes along with what we're saying is anybody can be family, right? Like blood doesn't necessarily matter. You show up for those that need you. I think one major thing that happened for us was going on vacation. We went to Hawaii together with the boys a couple years ago. After divorced, I was dating a guy and we decided to go to Hawaii for 2 weeks. While I was there, Jeff would take a night. I would go on dates. I would do different things. And then he would take a night.
We swiped on each other's Tinder for each other one afternoon on the beach.
Yeah, I let him swipe my Tinder and he let me swipe his Tinder. Because we have to understand that if we're going to build a bigger family, that I'm going to like his new girlfriend or he wants to like the guy that I date, because everybody needs to get along. My current boyfriend even offered to get him a room for Thanksgiving so he could have a spot so he could come, because we always spend Thanksgiving together. So he's like, "If we go out of town and I get your ex-husband a room, will you go with us all?" Because he just understands that we work as a family unit. Now, maybe that's a little extensive and crazy and we don't go quite that far. But the idea is this. He can come and go as long as he's respectful of my space. And I do the same, because I want my kids to be able to come and go from my house or come and go from dad's house. And it doesn't matter whose house.
Is that a hard boundary that you have set when you're dating, as you're dating with your significant others, that this is something that's important to you and is kind of one of those hard boundaries that this other person is going to be in our lives.
Yeah, but everybody has an ex. Most of us have an ex, and you can either be the one that's fighting with them and you're having to deal with the drama of court and all of that whole mess, or you can have him come over for Thanksgiving dinner and then he goes home afterwards. You invite him over for a barbecue because it makes the kids happy and he has marshmallows with him. If you realize and have to get comfortable within yourself and knowing that your relationship is strong because you love your husband and he loves you. If your husband's going to cheat on you, that's something you should be talking to with them, whether it's with an ex or with someone else. Has it always been easy? No, there's major sacrifices. I wouldn't live in Utah. I would definitely be gone. But my ex wants to live in Utah and I don't want to take my children away from my ex. So is it a sacrifice? 100%. And I will do it through and through because that was the decision that I made when I had children, is that I will sacrifice up until that they're grown.
When you say you both live here in Utah still, what's the mileage between you guys for people who aren't familiar with maybe the cities around us? I mean, how many miles between you right now so you guys can go back and forth?
So when we first got divorced, I moved to Saratoga Springs and he lived in Pleasant Grove. And it was about a 30 to 45 minute switch back and forth. And it was killing me. So I bought a condo in Pleasant Grove where he is, and I have always stayed within 3 to 5 miles of him. At one point, we were less than a half a mile away from each other, just happened to be. Now, the one give that Jeff always does for me is he comes to me. If the kids need something, he shows up here. If the kids forgot something, he'll bring it to him. I'm not always having to do the running, but I also gave the sacrifice of making sure that I bought my home close to some place that he's at. So, and it's a give and take on lots of things. I have to have the hard conversations with the guys that I date that I'm like, hey, I'm super sorry, but for my children, my ex is going to sleep downstairs with them on Christmas Eve because we want one Christmas. It's more important that we not double the gifts and double the garbage and, like we just make it one. And if he's not okay with that, then maybe he's not fit for our family. But you also have to be very respectful on boundaries and find your own on that too.
As we were figuring out this new modern family paradigm and how we could kind of play from two different households, when we had a couple Thanksgiving under our belts and we had a couple Christmases under our belts, we kind of looked at each other and said, whoever we date has to be cool with this because I'm not going to change the ecosystem I've created with my children's mother for the sake of a girl I'm dating at this point.
There's also very much respect. Jeff never will come to the house without texting me.
Yeah, I always still knock on the door,
He doesn't come in. He doesn't just pop in. He's always very respectful and he always makes sure that we're comfortable. We even recently just this summer did a trip with Jeff and my boyfriend and myself and the boys all going camping together. That was oh my gosh, I'm taking my ex-husband and my boyfriend camping together, right? Weird. But it went beautifully. Was it a little awkward? Yeah, everything is awkward, right? But I'm a girl of awkwardness. So you just live in it and get past it. And you realize that maybe it's better awkward and getting past that to live a happier life.
You know what? Those are the stories you get to talk about.
Oh, yeah. The interesting stories.
Exactly. I remember that time we did a modern family camp out in Idaho. You absolutely remember those ones that are out of the norm. Shay brought up the vacation to Hawaii a couple years back. I need to add that she was more comfortable with that faster than I was. And she was saying, hey, let's take the kids on a big tropical trip somewhere for probably a year and a half before I finally said, okay, let's do it. Shay's much more comfortable jumping into the ambiguous, weird, let's go 4,000 miles away and see if we can go there on a beach. And it took me a while to get sold on the idea, but it was fantastic. We got stressed once on the way back to the airport after a week and a half of Hawaii, because airports suck. That was the only contention that we felt on that trip. And so these boundaries, the respect, and kind of testing those boundaries respectfully, I have to give Shay the credit. She's the one that invited me over on Christmas Eve that year. I think she's the one that, invited me to Thanksgiving that first time. She's the one that said, let's do Hawaii long before we did Hawaii. So yeah, there's learning curves with this. There's like, I'm not ready for that yet, to which Shay was awesome and respectful of that, kind of kept bringing it up in really good, respectful ways. But all of it has been to our children's benefit.
I want to hear a little bit more, Jeff. Just Shay's been the one that's kind of initiated some of these awkward experiences. Now they're not awkward. Now it's just how you guys run things. But what's going through your mind the first time she says, hey, why don't you come sleep over at the house with kids? Or let's do this. I want to dive in kind of what are those feelings initially for some of these guys out there? Like, there's no way I would ever do that. What was going through your head?
Yeah. Thanksgiving and Christmas I was so grateful. I was so grateful because Halloween went off really well. And I think we were proud of that because that was like a week and a half after the official finalization of the marriage, if I remember correctly.
You have to understand, our mediation was just like everyone else's. We both had reason to hate each other.
Yeah. Divorce sucks.
We could still hate each other and be bitter. I could tell you the reasons why, and he could tell you his. But it really boiled down to it is we really love our kids. And that's what matters the very most, right? Is we wanted to see, he didn't want to miss my son's first steps. He wanted to be around. We didn't want to go to a play. My son just did his first play. And we sat by each other. All of us just sit in a line together and we giggle. And we didn't ever want our son to like wonder which parent to go sit by. Like, how awful.
So yeah, I mean, back to that, Jeff. What's going through your head? I mean, to share with some of these guys out there that are thinking about this right now.
Like I said, the holidays, I was grateful. Like when you started this conversation with gratitude, I was grateful that Shay was extending that olive branch of saying, sleep on my couch, help me wrap the gifts that we both bought way too many of. And then if it gets weird, at least you saw the kids see Christmas morning magic, and then you take them to your house at noon, the way the divorce decree states. We always could fall back to the safety net that we agreed on legally. The ones that took me a longer time to chew on were the vacations. So the big Hawaii trip, like I said, it was probably a year and a half where Shay kept dropping it every few weeks of doing something big and fun and tropical. Shay is very much a beach person and she needs the ocean to survive. And she just wanted to include the kids. And, if we can do Christmas, why can't we do the beach? So that one was strange. It took me some time to chew on because boundaries, and I don't know if I could live 24/7 with my ex-spouse again for X amount of time on vacation. So there was the emotional math. There was the timing math of can we do this? Can I do this? Whenever someone, say they hear a voice or someone, whatever encouragement they hear from inside their head, that's future me that already knows how it's going to play out, telling me, Jeff, just go on vacation. Like you're second guessing a tropical vacation. Are you an idiot? If it was future me, if it was deity, if it was the aliens, whatever it is, telling me to just trust the process, trust the system we've built, trust my ex-wife that I trusted to start a family with beyond the ex-wife. Let's just go play. And if it gets weird, we can treat it like Christmas. Hawaii was big. It's a whole island. I can go to a different side if things get awkward or contentious or just, we need space. That was probably the last one, Hawaii, where I had to convince myself over time that it would be okay.
Then he learned to trust me.
Yeah. So you're saying the Idaho trip was easy?
That mental intuition, absolutely.
Idaho trip was, I think, harder for me because I was taking the boyfriend. I didn't know how that would.
What if they don't get along?
And then the boyfriend randomly picked a camping site 2 miles from where my mother grew up as a child, and I did not know this until we got to the campsite. And my mother's no longer with us; she's been gone for more than a decade. And I was starting to freak out. Shay, why are we here? Why are we here? And she's like, this is just where he picked to go camping. But again, the intuition, it added up to a wonderful vacation that my deceased mother was included in. It was wonderful. Yeah, it was fantastic.
You could look at divorce as this. It's a fresh start. When you get married and you get to build a life together, when you get divorced, you have to break the togetherness, but you still get to create lives. Now, for Jeff and I, it got rid of the divorce, gave us rules that we could live by, that we could go by or we could not go by. It was our choice. But we could go by them so that we could then create our own lives again, but still unite together as a family. So it was like, we didn't need, if he went to Hawaii or wherever he went, he had his boundaries. And I think that's one thing that people need to understand is that's all a divorce is written down boundaries. You can make your
You really
boundaries
can.
without
The
them.
key word you said during that is choice. It's your choice how to handle these situations. I mean, we look at these situations and you can choose to be the one that's going to cause a problem. You can choose the one that is going to just keep the peace. But it's you guys, it sounds like right from the get-go, you just chose, both of you, wholeheartedly, that the kids were the answer and
Right.
you would find a solution to make that work. I mean, it really just sounds like that's your whole divorce. I mean, from the moment it happened until now, it's, yeah, you did have all the nasty stuff, and you guys could probably get in arguments over that today still, but it doesn't matter because guess what? That's past you, and you guys don't care what the other person does outside of the kid time, as long as the kids are getting taken care of.
What's the most important thing to most people? It's not the money. Money comes and goes. It's the time. It's the time with the kids. So for us, there was time that I was just unwilling to give up. My kids' first steps, the Christmas mornings, Easter Sundays, couldn't bear the thought of giving those up. And so a lot of people stay miserably married because they can't stand the thought of not having those days with their kids. And I think that one of the things I wanted to do is show people that you can still be divorced and still have all of those things and make even a happier family.
I am now a divorced parent, but I'm looking at also, I'm not going to call anybody out, but I have some relatives that are also divorced, and it is absolutely awful. Like, even thinking about it almost brings tears because these kids are stuck in the middle of this because they can't get over the pride of themselves of, well, I'm going to show them. I mean, they've been divorced for 6-7 years now, and it is still, I'm going to fight them because it's my Christmas and they will be with me until the last minute of what the court says. Like, that's just sad. It's heartbreaking that these kids are suffering due to the pridefulness and just
Go.
the ego. They just can't get past that because they don't understand the kids are what's important. It's not how they feel.
I feel like childhood is so hard. It's hard enough. Do we really need to add more stress and dark energy to our kids, or are we just meant to try and give them light? So I think with those divorces, I had a good friend talk to me right after we got divorced, and he was such a blessing to me because he brought up how when he would go home to his mom's house, how he could never talk about what would happen at dad's because she was so angry. She was so mad. And she would be so angry that he would do something fun with them. And so it was like, he's like, I had to hide half my life from my own mom. And he's like, that was so hard. And if I even brought it up, she would go off on a tangent of anger. And I was like, oh, what an awful experience for a child to have to do. That's not fair. So I think we are made to give our kids the light and happiness. And if we're not able to teach them forgiveness by forgiving or getting past whatever caused our divorce on either side, how are we meant to teach and build good humans if we can't do it through
Absolutely.
example?
Well, I mean, you kind of led right into what I wanted to talk about. We've talked about all these things that you guys do. I really want to hit some bullet points. Jeff, I want to hit you first, and then Shay. What are the top 3 things that you feel you guys do very well as far as communication goes when the kids are involved? Like, what are the top 3 things that you feel like really help you guys on a day-to-day basis?
We go up and down at the fluidity of our communication. We're usually pretty good about it. Hey, we need this, or this is coming up. So I'd say that aspect, is pretty dialed in. It gets stressful around the holidays because everybody's working and everybody's trying to do Christmas, and that's a good question.
Can I interrupt? Tell you a couple?
Yeah.
Calendar. We put everything in the calendar. If
Yeah.
Jeff has something, kids' appointments, doctor's appointments, whatever it is, we have a shared calendar that always goes together so that we know what's going on. We also have a primary home. I am primary home. The school stuff, anything, it comes to me. And so I am in charge of that. Computers, technology, that's Jeff. Anything that has to do with that, he takes full control over. So we have our jobs. I know that seems silly, but we do. And then we have open dialogue. If I need something, I call Jeff. If the kids need something, I can pick up the phone day or night. If I call him twice in a row, he knows it's an emergency and he will get it picked up. Our kids have watches so that we can always contact them from both parties. We both have FaceTime because that is like massive in divorce. Holy cow, to be able to see your kids' faces. One major thing that, believe it or not, in our divorce that helps me a lot is I have final say, which means that if it really came down to it, I would have the final say because that is important. Now, if you don't have that set up in your divorce or your relationship, maybe it's something that you can
say. I mean, how does that kind of work? I mean, if you guys are in an argument and you cannot agree, you both agree that, okay, we can't agree, you have to make the decision. Is that kind of what it boils down to?
Yeah, it is actually in the divorce decree that says that I have final say on the children. Now, those can always be added afterwards, but what it really comes down to, there's only been one time ever that I ever was even worried that I might have to use it. I never did. But it came down to in 2020 when we were trying to decide if we give the kids COVID shots or not, vaccinations. I won't tell you one way or the other, but I will tell you that we disagreed on it. And I thought that I was going to have to use final say because I felt strongly one way versus another. Now, what it really comes down to is we always come back to each other and we're like, what's best for them? What do you think is best for them? But I think the biggest thing is that we always have open communication. There's one other thing that goes along with that is if I get hot, because I do, sometimes I get heated, Jeff can hang up on me. I can hang up on him. He can end it. It's
You've
okay.
set that ahead
it's
of time.
It's a boundary.
Yeah.
That's why we got divorced. If I got to, you know what I'm saying? That's not the reason, but part of it is you learn to set boundaries of I am not okay with this. And so because of our divorce and being able to split, I've learned Jeff's boundaries. Jeff's learned my boundaries. We've also learned that we don't necessarily need a deep, meaningful, connected relationship together. Our relationship is all about the kids. When we went to Hawaii, we hung out together, but we hardly even spoke. We hung out with our kids. It's all about the kids. Christmas morning, we'll be nice and kind to each other. We'll make breakfast and hang out, but we're not paying attention to each other. We're all
Jeff,
about
was
our
that
children.
hard for you to agree to the final say?
At the time during mediation, which was just like everybody else's mediation, Shay put it eloquently. I remember talking with my lawyer and I'm like, I don't like that. I think I can make good decisions and I don't want to acquiesce to someone that I disagree with so much right now and say, okay, you're going to be right all the time. And my lawyer shut that idea down real quick. He says, that's not what final say is. He says, this is not about what color shirt they wear. This is not about if they have a coat or not. He says, these are for the very detrimental legal decisions that you're going to disagree about, maybe once or twice in your divorce as divorced couples. He goes, my lawyer has been a lawyer longer than I was alive. And he goes, I don't remember the last time I tried a case based on a final say disagreement because it's so rare. And usually it's because it sometimes comes up frivolous because people try to flex as this color shirt or this haircut or whatever. But my lawyer just says, let this literally be the nuclear option that hopefully never, ever comes. He says, because it probably won't. In my career, it rarely ever comes. And if it does come, it's probably because it's the right decision that someone has to be the grown-up. And he goes, let mom be the grown-up. Let mom be mom, you be dad. And if it gets difficult, let mom make the difficult decision. And I said, okay. I can, if my lawyer with years of experience can tell me that's how it's going to be, then I'll trust my lawyer. Like Shay pointed out, it came down to a medical decision that was contentious because
Worldwide.
looking back, the media told us it should be a contentious decision. But that's the only time that we even got close to circling that decision and that kind of discussion. I agree with Shay that someone should have final say in the divorce. If it can be mediated and agreed upon respectfully, where it's the right thing, then I think it's correct. Because someone does need to be the grown up in a difficult decision. Someone has to be able to say, this is the
And
direction.
most of the time people do, unless it really is split 50-50.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, and I'll say you spelling that out, if your lawyer is still alive, we might be having people reach out for his information because, I mean, that's just very
Yes.
intuitive.
Sounds like a good lawyer.
He sounds like, he's a lawyer for the kids, but also to you. But he was putting the kids first in that situation. And again, that is so hard to find in today's world because when you're getting divorced, and I don't want to dive down this rabbit hole, but you're getting divorced, you're finding the lawyer that's going to be the bloodsucker, right? That's what you're after because you want everything material. You don't want to give everything up. But you seeked out a lawyer that was kind, a lawyer that was putting the kids first, a lawyer that was putting the best interest of everybody in the family first. And that's amazing. They're just not out there. Like, they're very hard to come across.
I think we both had awesome lawyers for that reason. And I think when you said it best, Scott, you're like out for blood. You're angry. You're mad. You want to take them. You want whatever place you are. Most get to that point at one avenue or second or another. And both of ours really came down to like, look, we are here for the kids. And then we're going to make everything else split 50-50 fair after that. And that's all it is. And we're like, oh, okay. Like, all that matters is the kids. And we're like, okay. Right.
Yeah.
So
my
I
lawyer
think
even
it mattered. Oh, excuse me. Go ahead.
now I was just going to say my lawyer kind of educated me as to, because I didn't know Shay's lawyer. I didn't know their history, anything like that. If they were going to be out for blood, whatever, but my lawyer says, Jeff, he goes, if someone comes in hot, he goes, there's not a judge in the state that's going to be like what you see on television. He goes, the state is trying to make sure, kind of like you're talking about, the state is making sure the kids are in a safe place and the most appropriate time in the safe place at the most appropriate ratios. And he says, this is not going to be a dramatic thing. This is going to be a calculation for the children. And I'm glad Shay's lawyer was similar because it's worked out wonderfully.
And you guys have been fantastic. I mean, you have gave us so much to look forward to, so much to talk about with other people that are going through divorce. Before we kind of end this, I want you both to give 2 or 3 things of advice that you want to give to anybody that is either in a divorce or thinking about divorce that has kids. I mean, what advice would you give to those people now from what you've learned?
Let's start with Shay.
Jeff and I ended up getting divorced when, I hope this is okay to share, when my son, who was only 1.5 years, said, Mommy, give me a kiss. And then they said, Daddy, give me a kiss. And then they said, kiss each other. And we went, that was so bizarre. We fell in love once. I didn't realize that so much of my importance as a mother is to teach my children what love truly is, not what it isn't. I think there's a lot of people that are wondering if they should stay in a marriage or not, and if it would be okay for their kids or if it wouldn't, or if they were going to be able to financially do it on their own, especially as a woman, if she were working part-time like I was, or not at all, or doesn't have a career. She feels trapped, doesn't feel like there's a way out. And there are some relationships that just fall out of love. There are some that are abusive. There are some that you need to run. And what I would say is that sometimes in our society, especially in Utah, that divorce is looked at as really bad. And what I would say is that sometimes divorce is the answer. Sometimes divorce allows you to show your kids what real love is. That it can be given to your ex-husband and to a boyfriend and to your neighbors and to your friends. And it doesn't matter who it is. That's what love is. and that you should be able to exit a bad situation and make a bad situation beautiful. That it just because it looks like it's going to break and shatter to pieces just means that those pieces get to be put back together into something beautiful that you create, even with those people that are still in your life. So even the most hard, nasty divorces, which Jeff and I, we have a good story. If ours can end up beautiful, anybody's can. And that you should always just really, truly think about not only where your kid's stage is when you're getting divorced, but where it's going to end up in the future, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. The last thing I would highly recommend is don't talk bad on your ex. Even if you hate them, don't talk bad about them in front of your children. Do you know that your child is just like them? You may not see it yet, but in 5 years, they might be just like them, and they may feel badly about themselves and about who they came from because you can't control your mouth. Does that make sense? So you can talk beautifully to your children about your exes and still show that you have love for who they are as individuals. I think you can create beautiful, beautiful, beautiful children.
I want to add on to that in terms of talking about your ex to your kids, and you can be truthful about it, like about the good things, about the attributes of the former spouse. I'm not just saying nice things because the kids are around. I'm saying nice things because I believe there is so much of my former spouse in both of my children, and I love my children perfectly, and I love them forever. And so that obviously means I love their mother and where they came from and who provided them who they are, you know? So when it adding on to Shay talking about not talking bad about the ex-spouse, but praising the ex-spouse publicly and honestly is really important. And I've been lucky enough to hear my ex-wife do that, you know, in front of my kids, and it made me feel all kinds of special. It really did. And I try to talk about the good things that Shay does and that Shay is in front of my kids and in front of her, because my kids deserve to know where they came from and where they get it, just the same way that Shay says that to them. But in answer to your question, to people that are listening, looking for advice, whatever, it's really, really scary, but you have to be okay to let go. Shay and I got into our relationship for the best of reasons. And I think it's fair to say that we ended our romantic relationship for the best of reasons as well. It was hard. It was difficult getting there, but it was still the same decision because we realized that it wasn't just our consequences anymore, and we could still make the right hard decision for the right reasons and for the right people, including ourselves. But you have to be okay to own the decision, and you have to commit to it. And then if I talk bad about it, I'm not owning it. Then I'm just talking bad about a decision that I made, and I was, made it professionally, I made it legally, but I need to make that commitment, and a good one. And it sounds really, really scary, but you just have to commit to being good. Because divorces can be good. Like Shay said, they can be the answer. They can be a continuation of the relationship that was started for the right reasons. And it teaches us, I think it's fair to say, we see where our relationship still needs growth in our divorced journey that we're still learning about this first time that we're on it. But myself and my ex-wife on the back a little bit. There's been times in movies or TV shows or in life with children, with people that my children meet or talk to, where they come home and say, or they watch a movie, they say, why is divorce always so ugly or so not happy in movies or TV shows? And it's hard seeing my kids see that dichotomy, seeing that there's kind of a general negativity in regards to how divorce is portrayed and spoken about. But again, it gives us a good opportunity to teach our kids of some people do choose the hard choices and they perpetuate the hard choices. Me and your mom, we try to choose the happy and choose the good and build off of our family and still create family experiences. But you just have to let go so that these new things can grow that Shay was talking about. You You can build out of that past, but you have to build. It's work. There's no doubt that it's work. We're talking about the things that make us feel good, but there's Christmas is coming. There's work to do in the next few days. There's going to be work to do after Christmas, and there's going to be cleanup and things that we're going to try to do better next year because of what we're learning about this year. But you just have to let go.
I don't know if anybody could have put it better than you two have today. I mean, that was one of the reasons I really wanted to have you guys on this show. Like you say, I have looked up to your relationship, and also had a little bit of envy through watching you guys go through it and how you handled it. And you really opened up my eyes for how I can look at things on my side. I mean, obviously I can make my choices differently and I can choose to do things. And Hillary being part of a divorced family as well, I think we can take some of this information and use it in our lives, but we're still only half of that equation. And so hopefully by some example and things, this can start spreading a little bit. So you guys, really thank you so much. It has been absolutely wonderful to hear how you guys are doing this, to share some of your amazing story. And hopefully we can inspire a few people out there that are going through hard times with divorce, that they can listen to this and know that there's hope, know that there's things that can make it happy, and you can have a happy divorce, and especially when you choose to put those kids first. So
I have to just say that, I mean, you guys are kind of an anomaly, unfortunately, and not all divorces end up amicably. And I just really, really have to commend you two for putting aside that pride and ego and making it work for your kids. What an example you guys are to those kids. I mean, they're so lucky to have two parents that are just willing to co-parent like you guys are. And I just really have to commend you for that.
we always try to turn it back to you guys. What's something you have to ask for us? Let's Shay first and then Jeff.
I want to know, here's the thing. I know that a lot of divorces end sticky and icky. I get that. But I would love to know one thing that you could do for your ex. I'll give you a simple example, okay? One day I bought a gift card and mailed it to Jeff in the mail just because. Just said, thanks for being a good dad. That's it. I would love to know one thing that you could do in your own life with your own ex. And this is a good example because there are some people that will have been divorced or maybe are in a relationship that is in for like yours, that maybe you weren't married, but Scott was, and he has an ex where that, and it doesn't matter if married or not married, but what's one area, if you have children with somebody, that you could put positivity or build your relationship in that manner?
But I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, just listening to your guys' stories, is to show appreciation more for the things that they are doing well. Make sure that she knows what a good mother she is. Make sure that she knows how much the things that she's appreciated for that she does do for the kids. Let's focus, I can be a little bit more positive and focus on those things and make sure I'm voicing those, or sending a card in the mail. I really think that's a great idea, and I might have to try that out and see how it goes.
It can be super small. It could be taking a swig when you bought one for your kids and she liked a swig. You, of course, want open dialogue and communication with your current partner. You don't want any jealousy, struggle. Of course, they know what's going on in full. But I don't think it's bad to ever put goodness in the world and to show your children that you can still be good to somebody.
One thing I
even
can commend
after
Scott
they've caused
for from
you
the
pain.
moment I met him is he always made sure that his ex, he would buy a gift for her for birthdays, made sure that she had a Christmas gift, made sure that she was taking care of Mother's Day, all of those things. And I really, really respected him right off the bat for that. So.
Thank you. That was a great question. Jeff, what's something you have for us?
Not so much a question, but an add-on for the individuals that listen that do have an ex-wife, based off of what was just said regarding Mother's Day. Shay and I have been doing Mother's Day, Father's Day separate for longer than we were married. It just came to my knowledge this year of our Lord, 2024, that every single Mother's Day weekend has fallen on my weekend, quote unquote, my weekend as my weekend with the kids. Sunday morning, Mother's Day, we go from my house to Mom's house and wish her happy Mother's Day. And I did not calculate whatsoever in my stupid caveman brain that maybe Mom wants to wake up to her babies there on Mother's Day. And Shay lovingly clued me in on it this year.
Guys,
It was very subtle that Mother's Day could be more, is really what it boiled down to. It could be more intentional. It could be more motherly. Because I look at it, cool, it's my weekend with the boys. We're going to go take Mom out to breakfast. We're going to go back to doing boy stuff. When we should really take care of Mom that day, all day. And so it would just, and as I say this, I am thinking and hearing future me say, Jeff, you could be intentional a lot more other places than just Mother's Day. But really making Mom feel like Mom is important. And so that would be my only parting thought is, even if you disagree with your former spouse, even if it's difficult, even if it's not where it's at with Shay and I, where it's for the most part pretty easy now, make the days that deserve to be intentional really intentional. And this is advice for myself. Spread those days out to not just be those calendar hits, but it teaches more in the long run, I think, than just Mother's Day. If that makes sense. And Father's Day, things like that.
I think there's a better way to end this episode. And you guys, I appreciate all the time, all the wonderful input you guys have put out. If anybody listening does want to learn more, wants to know Jeff's lawyer, any of this information, please reach out to us on the podcast. All our information is below each episode. And again, we could not be here without all of you listening. We could not be here without our wonderful guests who take the time out of their very busy schedules to be with us. And so thank you to everybody. Please subscribe. Please tell your friends. And we're excited to continue this series and hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the day.